Hi students, today we're going to create our first HTML file or hypertext markup language file using a text editor such as Notepad, Notepad++, or TextEdit. Well, first of all, what is a web page? What is HTML? Web pages are text files containing HTML, which is the hypertext markup language. It was created by Tim Berners-Lee for the purpose of creating and formatting web pages so we can see information, images, and other related information on a website. So how does the web work? The World Wide Web uses client computers and server computers architecture. So HTTP is a text-based request response protocol. It's called hypertext transfer protocol. You probably notice that when you go to many different web pages. You have HTTP followed by www. Well, that's it, HTTP, the hypertext transfer protocol, which is used every time you go to a web page. If you go, let's say you go to Disney or to Marvel Comics, you want to see the latest movie. Well, when you send that information, you type in the name of the website, HTTP sends a request to the server. And the server computer that contains all of the images, video files, links, and related information from the Marvel Comics movie, it sends a response, the HTML code that was used to create that web page. And once our computer receives the HTML code for the Marvel website, for example, then we can see all the information that's on the web page, again, such as images, information, related content. So a client computer runs a web browser. So if you're on your computer, you may be using Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, and Edge, Firefox. If you're on a Mac, you might be using Safari. And your browser will display the HTML code that comes from the server, which runs its own specific type of server software. Basically, when you save files to the cloud, you're saving images, photographs, music, work, you're saving it to a server somewhere out there in cyberspace. The cloud is really just a server. So how are web pages created? HTML files, or hypertext markup language files, can be created with text editors such as Notepad, Notepad++, or TextEdit. And there's a variety of others out there that you're free to choose from. An HTML file must be saved with an HTML file extension. So let's create our first HTML file using Notepad, or if you have a different text editor, that's totally fine. Here's an example that we're going to look at. We have our first line, and it's very important that you copy that exactly as it appears, all of the symbols, all of the text. So we have our doc type, HTML. That's what type of document? It's an HTML document. So we have your HTML tag, we have a body tag, then we have a first heading. And you gotta have different heading sizes using H1 or up to H6, but that's for later discussion. So we have our heading, first heading. Then we have our first paragraph. You notice you have your P for paragraph, my first paragraph. Then we'll close out the body, and we'll close out the HTML. So notice the difference up here. When you have the HTML tag, it's just HTML and between the greater than less than signs. The same thing for the body tag. You're putting the contents of your web page. Then when you finish with the web page, you will close out the body, close out the HTML. So let's look at an example. So if you will go to, if you're on a Windows PC, go search for Notepad. It's already in your installed in your computer by default. If you're on an Apple or a Mac, you have a text editor called, well, it's just called text editor, I believe. But there's others out there, such as Notepad++, which let me show you that real quickly. If you just Google search Notepad++, you can pull up this free text editor. This is one that I recommend. It's more useful and has more options and features, and looks much better than just plain Notepad. But for today, we're just going to use Notepad. Okay, so first of all, I want you to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 7 lines. So your doc type, HTML, that's the document type, then our HTML tag, and our body tag, and our first heading, and my first paragraph, then close out the body, and close out the file, HTML file. All files, whatever web page you go to, it's going to start with HTML and it's going to end with HTML. So we're going to save this down as index. For now, we'll just save it as index.txt. And it's going to show here file name, and just type index.txt, then save as type, and we'll just leave it as is, .txt, a text document. Now, let's save it as a HTML file. And I'll show you the difference and why it's important for you to save it as a HTML file versus just a text file. So, file name is going to be index.html, or it can be HTML, but for now we'll just say HTML. If you're using Notepad, you can just save as type all files, and the file will be saved as a .html file. Okay, if you're using Notepad++, it will give you the option to save it as a HTML file type. Okay, so now let's go to our desktop. You can save it in a folder or on your desktop. So now I have this file here, index.html. So guess what? If I click on it, it's going to open up in a browser, and it displays my first heading, my first paragraph. So if I want to edit this file, I could use Notepad, or I could use, let's say, Notepad++. Now, a feature that's nice about Notepad++ is that it uses the different colors, and you have a lot of features up here that you can use. So this one, if you notice, the HTML tag, the body tag, they're colored blue. If you notice the text that's displayed on your web page, it's in black. So if we go back and look at the Notepad file, you can see it's just black and white, and that's it. So it may be more useful for you to use Notepad++. And again, that's free to download, free to use. Let me just show you an example. So let's say we want to create a web page about traveling to Hawaii, New York, and France. So we're going to start with index.html. And the reason we call it index.html is because index indicates it's the home page. So here's our home page. I open it up. I have a home page. Now I can edit this home page, and I'll select Edit with Notepad++. So you can see the HTML code plus the text that's displayed on the web page. So if you notice here, I have a HTML file for Hawaii, an HTML file for New York City, and one for Paris. So if I select Paris, there it displays the Paris page. And if I right click and I edit with Notepad++, there I can see the HTML tags plus the text, plus links to images and so on. So each of these web pages this home page is a link to the Hawaii web page, or the New York City web page, or Paris. Okay, so that's our website. And there's images for each of these. So when you create a website, you want to put all your HTML files and images in the same folder. Otherwise, they may not display properly. So if we go to a website, let's say, here's a great website for you to check out, w3schools.com. And I highly recommend you go into this website because you have tutorials for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SQL, PHP, Bootstrap, and much more. It's the world's largest web developer site. It will be very useful for you if you're interested in becoming a web developer or just want to create websites or at least understand how they work. Let me show you something. If you're on your Windows PC, you can right-click and select View Page Source. And guess what? We see the HTML code for this website. And it starts with doc-type HTML, with HTML. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we see it closes with the HTML tag. But utilize this website. It has lots of great interactive tutorials. It explains everything in depth and gives you lots and lots of practice. Additionally, there's another great website, 20 Things I Learned About Browsers and the Web. And it goes over many topics such as, what is the internet? What is HTML? What is cloud computing? Web apps. And again, what is HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and more. Great website. And again, if I right-click on View Page Source, I can see the HTML code for this website. It's just that easy to see the HTML code for any web page. So like earlier I mentioned Marvel Comics, and if we do a search for Marvel Comics, and so we're going to marvel.com. Now I've sent out my computer sent a request to Marvel using HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, to get the HTML code. Okay. So now let's see. Let me go to marvel.com movies. And if I right click, I can view the page source right there. And you can also press Control U. So if you're at a website such as W3 Schools, if you just press Control U, there's other ways to do this on Apple or other systems. And you can search, find those out very quickly by just doing a quick Google search. Well, for now, just remember, if you save it as a text file, HTML, just HTML files, has to be saved with the .html extension. If you save it just into .txt, the file will not display in your web browser. So it has to be saved as index.html. We can look right there again. My first heading, my first paragraph, and one more time, we're going to edit with Notepad++, and you can see the text that you entered, the HTML code, is now used to create a web page. And it's very simple. Now, many web pages contain 1,000 or 2,000 lines. Ours just has 7, just getting started. But I encourage you to keep on studying, keep practicing, and you can develop fantastic, amazing web pages.